Welcome to the 2 a.m. Theory Podcast. This is where late night thoughts become late night conversations.
What if some people were always meant to find each other?
Oh, wow. Starting right in the deep end tonight.
You know me. But seriously, think about it. Picture where you are right now. Maybe you're driving alone. It's 2 in the morning. The highway is completely empty. It's just this dark ribbon under your headlights. And the radio is just a low hum. The world is finally quiet.
Yeah, that's the exact time your brain decides to start doing inventory on your entire life.
Exactly. And in that quiet, your mind inevitably wanders to the people in your life. Like the ones who stayed, the ones who left, and maybe the ones you haven't even met yet. I mean, have you ever walked into a coffee shop or bumped into someone on the street and felt this sensation like your brain is desperately trying to index a memory that hasn't even happened yet?
Oh, absolutely. That profound, jarring sense of recognition.
Right. Your logical mind says, I just met you, but your nervous system is screaming, I know you. Where have you been?
Yeah, that phenomenon, that sudden, undeniable gravity, it forces this cognitive dissonance that we really struggle to process as humans because, we operate in a reality governed by random chance, right? By chaos, by billions of overlapping variables. We rely on empirical data.
Totally.
Yet in those specific, singular moments, the chaos just seems to pause. The universe temporarily stops looking like this random collision of atoms and starts looking terrifyingly like a carefully choreographed design.
A design. That is the word. That terrifying, beautiful, world-shifting feeling is the exact heartbeat of tonight's late-night conversation. Because we are plunging into the deep end of human connection. We are unpacking the red string theory.
Or, as it's known in its original East Asian folklore, the red thread of fate.
Right. And our mission tonight, for you listening, is to really figure out why we as a species are so deeply captivated by the idea of destined connection. Like, we are looking at the tension between cosmic fate, cold, hard scientific coincidence, and, well, our undeniable, relentless craving for meaning.
And to do that, we're synthesizing a really diverse stack of sources for this deep dive. I mean, we're looking at ancient Chinese and Japanese mythology, pulling from academic analyses of East Asian folklore. But interestingly, we're also bringing in insights from the Journal of Legal Entity Management and Local Innovation.
It sounds incredibly dry.
It sounds completely disconnected, yeah.
Right.
But it actually provides this fascinating look at how these ancient myths functioned as societal glue. We'll also explore how the theory survives today. We've got Lauren Kung Jessen's recent novel, Red String Theory, plus some deep cinematic analyses of films like Celine Song's Past Lives and Makoto Shinkai's Your Name. Oh, and some modern cultural commentary from platforms like Mochi Magazine and the Binus English Club.
It's a huge stack.
Yeah.
But I want to start at the very beginning. Because before we had viral internet aesthetics and, cute greeting cards, this was an ancient, deeply held philosophical belief. Where does this actually come from?
Well, we have to travel back to the Tang Dynasty in China. So that spanned from the 7th to the 10th century. This was a period of massive cultural, economic, and cosmopolitan expansion. In Chinese folklore, this concept is known as Hongjian, or Yinyuan Hongxian.
Okay.
The mythology centers around a Taoist deity named Yue Lao, though we usually just abbreviate his name simply to Yue Lao.
He's the old lunar matchmaker god.
Exactly.
Damn.
Picture the visual the ancients created for this. You have this old man standing under the cold glow of the moon, consulting a vast cosmic ledger, the Book of Marriages. He's the sole architect of the red thread.
Just writing our face down in the dark.
Pretty much. The lore dictates that the moment a child is born, Yue Lao ties an invisible red string connecting that infant to the specific person they are destined to marry.
Let me think about how to phrase this. Because the mechanics of this string itself are incredibly specific, right? It isn't just a metaphor for good vibes between two people.
No, far from it. It operates under a very strict set of cosmic rules. First, it is entirely invisible to the mortal eye. Second, it possesses infinite elasticity.
Meaning it can stretch.
It can stretch across continents, it can survive through decades of complete silence and cross vast socioeconomic divides. It can also tangle.
The tangles?
It can get caught in the most agonizing, frustrating knots imaginable, creating massive delays or friction in the lives of the two people attached. But the absolute core tenet of the theory, the unbreakable rule, is that the thread can never, ever snap.
So you could move to the opposite side of the globe.
Yeah.
You could completely reinvent your life. You could literally marry another person, have an entire family, and live a whole lifetime seemingly disconnected from your so-called destiny. But the tether is still there.
It remains completely intact, regardless of your earthly decisions. And this is where we have to look at the source material regarding the folklore itself. Because modern pop culture has aggressively sanitized this myth. We've stripped away the teeth of the original stories to make it palatable for modern romance.
I noticed that when going through your notes, the original stories aren't romantic comedies. They are dark. They deal with inescapable consequences. I really want to hear these original stories because they totally shattered my perception of this whole theory.
Yeah, let's look at the primary narrative that established the dread associated with Yue Lao's thread. The folklore introduces us to a young boy walking home late at night. The village is asleep. He spots an old man, Yue Lao, standing beneath the moonlight, reading his book and holding a massive sack of red string.
Okay, spooky start.
Right. So the boy is curious and approaches. Yue Lao looks at him, points a finger into the distance toward a very poor, ragged young girl sleeping in the dirt, and informs the boy, "That girl is connected to you by the red thread. She is destined to be your wife."
Hold on, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of like a young, likely arrogant kid in the Tang Dynasty. He's being told his future is not only entirely out of his control, but it's tied to someone he views as socially beneath him.
You've identified the exact psychological friction. The boy is disgusted. He has zero interest in an arranged destiny, and he absolutely rejects the idea of being tied to this specific girl. His reaction isn't to just walk away and ignore it either.
What does he do?
He decides to proactively destroy his fate. He picks up a heavy, jagged rock, hurls it directly at the young girl's face, and flees into the night, absolutely convinced he has shattered the cosmic plan.
Are you kidding me? He attempts a literal, violent assassination of his own destiny. That is incredibly dark.
Oh, it gets much darker. The narrative fast-forwards many years. The boy has grown into a highly successful, wealthy young man. His parents arrange a prestigious marriage for him with a woman from a neighboring town. It's the night of the wedding. He is in the bedchamber, waiting. He walks over to his new bride, lifts the traditional veil covering her face, and is initially relieved. She is renowned as one of the great beauties of the region. But as he looks closer in the candlelight, he notices she's wearing a very specific, delicate floral adornment plastered over one of her eyebrows. He asks her the reason for this specific piece of jewelry.
Let me guess. The rock.
She looks at him and explains that when she was a little girl living in poverty, a boy viciously threw a rock at her face out of nowhere. It struck her brow, leaving a terrible, deep scar, so she wears the adornment every day to hide the disfigurement.
Man. So it's the exact same girl. The very act of throwing the rock, the violence he used to try and escape her, is a thing that physically marked her for the rest of her life leading up to the exact moment he lifts the veil.
It operates precisely like an ancient Greek tragedy, Oedipus trying to avoid the prophecy only to fulfill it through his avoidance. And the sources provide a second, even more intense variation of this folklore.
Oh, wow. Okay, lay it on me.
We are introduced to an ambitious young public official, a magistrate. He seeks out Yue Lao, demanding to know the identity of his future wife, fully expecting the god to name the daughter of a wealthy lord or a royal minister.
Because he wants his destiny to align with his career trajectory.
Of course. But Yue Lao points to a poor, disabled little girl walking through a crowded marketplace being led by an old, blind woman. Yue Lao tells the official, "That is your future wife." The official is utterly horrified. His reputation, his political ambition, he calculates that marrying this child will destroy his standing.
Let me guess, he doesn't handle this well either.
He escalates the violence. He orders his most trusted servant to go down into the marketplace and assassinate both the little girl and the old woman.
Wait, what? This isn't just an arrogant kid anymore. This is premeditated murder to preserve a political career. He is literally trying to sever the red string with a knife.
The servant goes into the marketplace. Chaos ensues. The attack is carried out, and the official flees the region, assuming the threat to his ambition has been permanently eliminated. Decades pass. The official climbs the ranks, becomes highly powerful, and is finally introduced to what he considers the perfect woman.
I see where this is going.
She belongs to a highly respected, aristocratic family. They marry. She is elegant, cultured, everything he desired. But he notices two things. She walks with pronounced limp, and she never removes a silk patch worn over her forehead.
Oh, man. Let me take a breath here. The tension in these stories is just unbearable. What happens when he asks her about it?
One evening, he inquires about the patch. She breaks down weeping. She confesses a deep family secret. She is not the biological daughter of the aristocrats. She's their niece. When she was a toddler, she lived in squalor with her blind nanny. One afternoon, a madman attacked them in the public market. Her nanny was stabbed to death protecting her.
That is brutal.
The little girl barely survived the attack, left permanently crippled in one leg and bearing a massive scar across her forehead from the blade. The wealthy family took her in afterward out of pity. The official listens to this and realizes, with absolute crushing horror, that the woman he deeply loves is the survivor of the hit he ordered. He falls to his knees, confesses his crime, and is forced to beg for her forgiveness.
Okay, I have to stop right here.
Yeah.
Because I am pushing back entirely on the way modern culture packages this. We slap the red string of fate on Valentine's Day cards and Spotify playlists. But from where I'm sitting, this strips away all human agency. I find that incredibly dystopian.
It is a totally different vibe, yeah.
It's like quicksand. The harder these men fought against their destiny, the more brutally they ensured it came to pass. They literally caused the physical trauma on the women they were fated to love. There is zero free will here. You are trapped in a cosmic cage.
Let's explore that revulsion, because it is crucial to understanding the evolution of the myth. In East Asian culture, the color red is overwhelmingly auspicious. It symbolizes luck, happiness, prosperity, and vitality. It is the color of celebration. So theoretically, the thread is red because it is ultimately guiding you toward your optimal, most joyful pairing.
Right, but it doesn't feel joyful.
Exactly. As you just pointed out, in these foundational texts, the thread doesn't act like a gentle, romantic guide. It operates as a ruthless, inescapable mandate. It forces a really uncomfortable philosophical confrontation. Do we actually desire destiny, or do we only want the illusion of it when it happens to align with our preferences?
Yeah, I think we want fate to be a polite suggestion, not a prison sentence. We want the universe to bring someone incredible to our doorstep, but we want the ultimate authority to say yes or no. The men in these stories said no, and the universe basically said, I don't care, you're doing this anyway.
Which brings up the fascinating contribution from the Journal of Legal Entity Management and Local Innovation.
Ah, the dry paper.
Right. You mentioned earlier that it seemed like an outlier in our sources, but it provides the sociological why behind this dread. In ancient Chinese society, particularly during the Tang Dynasty, marriage was rarely a romantic endeavor. It was a strict, binding legal entity. It was about resource management, local community alliances, merging property, and maintaining social hierarchy.
So you're saying the myth wasn't invented to make people feel romantic? It was invented to enforce legal contracts.
It acted as the ultimate cultural enforcement mechanism. If your parents arranged a marriage for you that you despised, which happened constantly, the community needed a way to ensure you complied. By embedding the red string theory into the culture, the elders could say, you aren't just rebelling against your parents, you are rebelling against Yue Lao, you are fighting cosmic law.
Oh, wow.
The horror stories of the boy throwing the rock and the official hiring the assassin were cautionary tales. The message was clear. Do not fight your arranged legal union, or the universe will punish you with violence and irony.
That completely recontextualizes the entire theory. It was an ancient psychological tool to ensure compliance with local innovation and societal structure. The fate was actually just the legal will of the community, disguised as a god in the moonlight.
But myths are living things, right? They adapt. And what is brilliant about the red string theory is how the mechanics of it evolved over time in geography to become softer, more personalized. The anatomy of the thread literally shifted as the belief system migrated out of China and into Japan and Korea.
Right. The sources detail a very specific physical shift. In the original Chinese folklore, the red thread was tied around the ankles of the two destined people. But as it moved to Japan, the anchor point moved. It shifted from the ankles to the hands, specifically from a male's thumb to a female's little finger. Or, in the most common modern iteration across all these cultures, it connects the two pinky fingers of the destined pair.
I'm curious how you interpret that shift, because moving a cosmic tether from the foot to the hand is a highly specific mythological adjustment.
Well, I think about the universal concept of the pinky swear. Even as young children, before we understand complex legal contracts or cosmic fate, locking pinkies is the ultimate unbreakable promise. It transcends language. It's a vow.
That's a great point.
Moving the thread from the ankles, which implies you are being dragged somewhere against your will like a prisoner, to the pinky fingers, changes the entire dynamic. The hands are tools of action. We hold hands, we build, we reach out. It shifts the myth from a geographic inevitability to an interpersonal promise.
That is a very astute psychological reading. The ankle implies a loss of autonomy. The universe is walking for you. The hand implies that you still have to reach out. And this ties beautifully into the perspective offered by Constantine Ahmad in our sources. She draws a brilliant comparison between Eastern and Western mythology regarding the use of threads.
The Ariadne comparison. I loved this part of the reading.
Unpack it for the listener.
In Western mythology, our most famous thread is the story of Theseus and the Minotaur. Theseus has to go into the labyrinth to kill this monster. Ariadne gives him a ball of red thread to tie at the entrance so he can navigate his way back out without getting lost. In the West, the thread is a tool of survival and escape. It helps you get out of a literal maze, away from a literal monster. You use the thread to flee back to safety, back to individuality.
And contrast that with the Eastern philosophy of Yue Lao's thread.
In the East, the red string of fate is not about escaping. It's about navigating the maze of human connection. The goal isn't to get out. The goal is to follow the thread deeper into the maze to find the person waiting at the other end. The maze isn't a trap. The maze is just life. And the string is the only thing that makes the sheer terror of the maze bearable.
That distinction highlights a fundamental difference in how cultures view the unknown. And we have to talk about the physical nature of the string inside that maze, because the mythology places heavy emphasis on the knots. The string is infinitely elastic, but it gets tangled. Think about the implications of the tangled string in the context of modern psychology.
I think the tangle is the most empathetic part of the whole theory. I mean, think about your own life. Think about the near misses, the relationships that burned incredibly bright for 6 months and then collapsed, the times you met someone amazing but one of you was moving across the country the next week. We look at those moments and we call it wrong timing.
Right.
We view it as a massive failure of the universe. But in the framework of the red string theory, wrong timing isn't a failure. It's just a knot in the string. It creates friction, it creates delay, it creates immense pain, but it doesn't sever the ultimate connection.
The psychological comfort that provides is monumental. Consider the environment we are currently navigating. We live in an era that is technologically the most connected in human history, yet sociologically, we are in the middle of a profound epidemic of isolation.
Oh, totally.
Modern dating is a landscape governed by cold algorithms, by infinite scrolling, by ghosting. We are paralyzed by the paradox of choice. You have access to millions of potential partners on a screen, which perversely makes every single choice feel like a potential mistake.
It's dating app burnout. You're sitting on your couch looking at a glowing screen, swiping through human faces like commodities, feeling completely alienated from your own species. And this theory taps you on the shoulder and whispers, relax. The decision has already been made. You are already tethered. The connection exists. You just haven't pulled all the slack out of the line yet. It removes the crushing burden of having to engineer your own miracle.
It acts as an antidote to modern existential dread. But that comfort introduces a new conflict. What happens when this ancient, comforting fatalism collides with our cold, rational, data-driven modern world? This friction is the exact premise of Lauren Kung Jessen's 2024 novel, Red String Theory, which we have in our stack tonight.
I want to spend some real time on this book because Jessen does something incredibly smart. She doesn't just use the myth as a cute backdrop for a romance. She uses it as an ideological battleground between two completely incompatible ways of viewing reality.
Yeah, she sets up the dichotomy perfectly.
Right, we have two protagonists. On one side, we have Rudy Gao. She is an artist living in New York City. She's deeply entrenched in her Chinese heritage, and she has wholly internalized her belief in signs, the cosmos, and the red string. Her art reflects this. She literally creates large-scale installations using miles of red string. She is the living embodiment of faith and destiny.
And on the other side of the ideological spectrum, we have Jack Liu. Jack is the absolute antithesis of Rooney's worldview. He is a brilliant, highly logical scientist working at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, in Los Angeles. His entire life is built on empirical evidence, verifiable data, and orbital mechanics.
He's a numbers guy.
Exactly. He finds mundane, mathematically sound explanations for absolutely everything. The concept of an invisible magical tether dictated by a lunar god is, to him, scientifically absurd.
And the juxtaposition of their environments perfectly mirrors their internal states. They meet in New York City during a lantern festival. Jessen writes this scene beautifully. The atmosphere is thick with magic. The air is glowing with paper lanterns. It feels like serendipity is a physical presence in the room. They have this incredible night together. It feels entirely fated. But then a completely mundane, non-magical mishap occurs. A lost phone number, a missed connection, and they're separated. the universe drops them.
Until they are thrown back together completely by coincidence on the opposite coast.
Right. They end up working on a collaborative project at JPL in Los Angeles. And the contrast is jarring. You go from the magical, illuminated, chaotic energy of a New York night festival to the cold, practical, sterile, fluorescent-lit reality of a government science laboratory.
It forces the reader to confront the eternal debate, spirituality versus science. Let's adopt Jack's scientific perspective for a moment and really drill down into the mathematics of human connection. From a sociological and statistical standpoint, the concept of a singular soulmate is terrifyingly improbable.
Terrifyingly improbable is an understatement.
We currently share this planet with over 8 billion other human beings. The mathematical improbability of you meeting the one specific person who fundamentally perfectly aligns with your psychology is staggering.
It's the Fermi paradox applied to dating. If soulmates exist, where is everybody?
Exactly. Well, let me build on that. You have to factor in complex variables. Geographic isolation, socioeconomic mobility, linguistic barriers, cultural differences, and the razor-thin margins of timing. Think about network theory. Your life trajectory is altered by micro decisions.
Like what?
Like, if you can't find your car keys and leave your apartment 10 seconds later than usual, you miss your subway train. Because you miss that train, you take the next one, and you do not sit next to the stranger who, in another timeline, becomes your spouse. Every significant connection you have ever made is the result of millions of cascading, mathematically impossible coincidences aligning perfectly.
The butterfly effect of relationships. The flap of a butterfly's wings in Brazil causes a tornado in Texas. Losing your keys on a Tuesday leads to meeting the love of your life in a coffee shop.
For a scientist like Jack, attributing those staggering statistical improbabilities to an invisible red string isn't just unscientific. It's a denial of the beautiful chaos of reality. But Jessen introduces a deeper emotional conflict for Jack, and this gets to the core of why modern audiences struggle with fate. Jack doesn't want to be loved because a cosmic god tied a string to his pinky finger thousands of years ago. He wants to be chosen. I have to say, I am passionately on Jack's side here. Let's really sit with the romance of choice versus the romance of fate. If an algorithm on a dating app or a Taoist god on the moon tells you that you are biologically, mathematically, or cosmically required to love the person standing in front of you, well, doesn't that completely cheapen the emotion?
How so?
Because where is the vulnerability? The entire beauty of love is the risk involved. It is looking at a terrifying universe of 8 billion unpredictable people and saying, I am consciously choosing you. I see your flaws. I see the statistical probability that this might fail, and I'm choosing you anyway. If fate is real, you aren't making a choice. You are just fulfilling a mandate. If fate is real, love is just a hostage situation with better lighting. Is free will actually sexier than destiny?
I see what you're saying. That is the exact philosophical friction the novel navigates. Is it more profoundly romantic to be cosmically destined or to be actively selected? What Jessen does, and what I think human psychology constantly attempts to do, is forge a compromise between the two.
A middle ground.
Yeah. We want the ancient tradition of fate to arrange the meeting, but we demand the modern autonomy of individual choice to sustain it. We want the universe to drop the perfect person into our path, but we want the absolute freedom to reach out and take their hand. The magic resides in the coincidence of the meeting. The reality resides in the daily, grueling choice to stay.
We want Yue Lao to make the introduction, but we refuse to let him write our vows.
That is a perfect distillation. And this modern struggle to visualize these invisible forces, to map out the architecture of fate, has absolutely exploded in contemporary cinema. How visual media translates the concept of the invisible string is incredibly revealing about our collective psyche.
Which brings us to Celine Song's incredible film, Past Lives. This movie is practically a masterclass in the emotional weight of destined connection. We touched on it briefly, but we need to dive deep here.
Please do.
For anyone who hasn't seen it, the film follows two childhood sweethearts in South Korea. They are separated when the girl's family emigrates to Canada, and later the U.S. decades pass, and their lives keep brushing up against each other. The narrative is anchored entirely by the Korean philosophical concept of in-yun.
In-yun is a remarkably complex concept to translate directly. It loosely equates to providence or fate, but specifically regarding human relationships. The philosophy suggests that if two people meet, even in the most brief, mundane way, like their coats brushing against each other on a crowded sidewalk, it means there must have been a significant connection between them in their past lives.
And the movie gives us the specific math on this. They say it takes 8,000 layers of yin-yang, 8,000 lifetimes of brushing shoulders, being enemies, being siblings, being lovers, for two people to be destined to marry in their current lifetime.
8,000 cycles of reincarnation just to earn the right to sit across from someone at a table. The spiritual weight of that is staggering.
And what Song does so brilliantly in the film is she refuses to treat yin-yang, or the red string, as a tight, straight rope, pulling the characters into a neat Hollywood happy ending. In past lives, you see the string as a vast, melancholic web. There is a deeply powerful scene near the end. They're sitting at a bar in New York. The physical space between them is palpable. You realize that sometimes the string brings you back together, not so you can stay together, but simply so you can acknowledge the connection before the universe pulls you apart again.
It explores lost love not as a tragic failure, but as a necessary structural layer of yin. The string doesn't guarantee you possess them in this life. It only guarantees you will recognize them. It provides immense comfort to the diaspora experience, the immigrant experience, this idea that the people you leave behind are still tethered to you across the ocean.
We see a much more kinetic, explosive visual translation of this in Makoto Shinkai's anime masterpiece, Your Name.
Yes, the braided cords. In Your Name, the entire narrative architecture revolves around literal physical cords. The two protagonists are separated by vast distances and, without spoiling too much, by time itself. They swap bodies. The braided cord they share physically and metaphorically bridges the impossible gap between them.
Right.
Shinkai uses the visual of the threads separating, snapping, and tying back together to represent the flow of time itself. It is a stunning representation of the thread tangling and eventually pulling two people toward a physical convergence.
But I want to pivot because the source material brings up another anime that radically shifted my understanding of this theory. And this is where the conversation expands way beyond romance. We need to talk about Kill la Kill.
A phenomenal example. On the surface, Kill la Kill is chaotic, hyper-violent, and visually absurd.
Yeah, it's about characters gaining superpowers in their clothing. It sounds like a joke. But the writer from the Odyssey Online piece we reviewed points out an incredibly profound sociological mechanism within the show. In Kill la Kill, the central plot involves life fibers, which are literally red threads woven into existence. But these threads do not connect a boy and a girl destined to fall in love.
No, they serve a completely different master. And analyzing this reveals a massive cultural divergence in storytelling. Western media is fundamentally obsessively individualistic. The hero's journey in the West, from Luke Skywalker to Neo in The Matrix, is almost always a solitary one. It is the chosen individual rising up against the world.
Right, the lone wolf.
But Eastern media frequently operates on a different foundational sociological philosophy, the belief in collectivism, the deep-seated belief that no single person can survive alone.
So in Kill la Kill, the red thread, the life fibers, binds the entire cast together. It connects a sprawling community of friends, rivals, teachers, and allies who are all fighting against a totalitarian threat.
It acts as the physical manifestation of societal bonds. It represents shared vulnerability, necessary teamwork, and unity. The lack of individualism forces the characters to rely completely on the strength of the bonds they share with others. The string isn't just pointing from person A to person B in a romantic straight line. It is a complex, interwoven web holding the entire structure of their community intact.
This honestly blew my mind when I read it. We constantly commodify the red string as the ultimate romantic soulmate tracker. We treat it like the Find My iPhone app for your future spouse. But what if the string is actually just the universal human network? I want to pull from the Mochi magazine perspective we researched. They argue that love is not just a romantic destination. The string connects us to our family of origin, connects us to deep, life-altering friendships, and even connects us to our own passions, our career callings.
Consider the implications of that. What if your soulmate isn't your romantic partner? What if your soulmate is your best friend? Or your mentor? Or that one high school teacher who saw a spark of potential in you when you were 15 and completely altered the trajectory of your professional life?
It is a vital paradigm shift. If we only look for the string in romantic contexts, we are blinding ourselves to the profound connections that actually sustain us daily. I want you, the listener, to really reflect on this right now. Think about the people in your own life. Who has fostered your growth? Who had the courage to challenge you when you were acting out of fear? Who sat on the floor with you at 3 a.m. when your world fell apart? close friends are often our greatest, most profound teachers. The cosmic force, the red string, brought them to you just as deliberately and with just as much cosmic effort as it might bring a lover.
Why do we diminish those connections? Why do we insist that only romantic love is fated?
Because romance is the easiest narrative to commodify and sell. It's easy to put on a movie poster. But the reality of human connection is infinitely more complex. Think about that one friend who just gets you on a cellular level. You never have to explain your jokes. You never have to justify your moods. The translation time between your brain and theirs is 0. That is the red string. That is in Yun. You have known them for 8,000 lifetimes, and in this lifetime, they came back as your best friend.
The complexity of those varied connections brings us to the most modern viral interpretation of the theory. The recent resurgence of the red string theory on platforms like TikTok hasn't just regurgitated the ancient myth, it has birthed a new visual metaphor that I find incredibly moving. It perfectly encapsulates the philosophy outlined by the Binus English Club in our research.
The unraveling yarn metaphor. When I first watched a video explaining this, I literally had to pause and walk away for a minute. Okay, I want everyone to picture this. Imagine a baby is born. But instead of just a delicate, invisible string tied to their ankle or pinky finger, imagine they are born holding a tightly wound skein of thick red yarn, a massive, complex ball of yarn.
A great visual.
And as that child grows up, as they learn to walk, go to school, move to new cities, experience life, the yarn slowly begins to unravel behind them, creating a long red trail mapping out their existence.
And crucially, the path of that unraveling yarn is never smooth. It drags through the mud, it catches on sharp corners, and most importantly, it forms knots. Let's analyze the psychology of this metaphor. The knots in the yarn are not mistakes. They are representations of trauma. They represent the tragedies, the physical diseases, the deep emotional heartbreaks, the job rejections, the catastrophic failures. Every single time you think you cannot possibly go on, every time you are fundamentally broken by life, a massive, dense knot forms in the yarn you are leaving behind.
But the core rule still applies. The yarn does not break. You survive the heartbreak. You spend years in therapy untangling the knot, or maybe you never fully untangle it. Maybe you just learn to carry the heavy knotted yarn with you and you keep walking forward. The yarn keeps unraveling. The Binus English Club article framed this with such grace. They argued that the theory at its core is not about passive waiting. It teaches us extreme patience and demands active participation.
We must focus intensely on our own personal growth. We have to evolve into the best possible versions of ourselves, traversing the maze, surviving the friction of the knots. Why? So that when we finally do reach the end of the unspooled yarn and we meet the person or the people standing at the other end, we are actually psychologically and emotionally prepared for them.
So the string isn't a magical shortcut. It's a brutal obstacle course. You don't just get to sit on your couch, eat junk food, refuse to work on your toxic traits, and wait for the string to magically drag your soulmate through the front door. You have to walk the path. You have to do the grueling, unglamorous work of untangling your own life first. Because if you meet your fated person before you've untangled your own knots, what happens? You just tangle them up in your mess. You ruin the connection because you weren't ready.
The destination might be guaranteed by fate, but the quality, the health, and the endurance of the connection relies entirely on your personal evolution. The universe can put them in the room, but you have to be the person capable of making them stay. The unraveling yarn demonstrates that human complexity is not a neat, formulaic equation. Our strength, our character, is forged entirely by how we survive the knots.
And there is a profound comfort in realizing that even when people come and go, even when a 10-year relationship ends and that person permanently exits your life, the string itself remains in your hands. It proves that love is constantly tied to you. Even when you feel entirely alone, sitting in your room at 2 a.m., the string is right there. Love is a constant ambient presence, simply waiting to be fully unspooled.
It really is.
We are getting to that hour, my friend. The air in here is getting heavy. This is the 2 a.m. reflection. Let's just slow down for a second.
Let's sit with it.
I want to think about the tension between the temporary and the eternal. We put so much immense, crushing pressure on the idea that if a connection is truly fated, it must last forever, till death do us part. If it ends, it was a failure. But think about the people who leave absolute permanent marks on your life, even if they are no longer physically in it.
The transient soulmates.
Yes. The college roommate who fundamentally changed how you view politics or art, but you haven't spoken to in a decade. The intense, burning romance in your 20s that ultimately collapsed under its own weight, but taught you exactly what you deserve and what you will never tolerate again. Are those failed strings? Did the universe make a mistake? Or are they exactly what they were meant to be?
It forces us to challenge our entire definition of a successful relationship. In Western culture, we equate longevity with success. If a marriage lasts 50 years, it is a success. If it ends in divorce after 5 years, it is a failure. But if we view human connection through the lens of the red string, perhaps we need to redefine success. Perhaps wrong timing doesn't ruin love. Perhaps it simply redirects it.
Redirects it how?
The string pulls you into a high-speed collision with someone. You exchange the necessary lessons. You experience the required joy and the mandatory pain. You alter each other's trajectories. And then once the purpose of the connection is fulfilled, the string pulls you in a different direction. It redirects your energy to where it is ultimately meant to go next. The brevity of the connection doesn't negate its cosmic importance.
Are some stories never truly over? I think about that a lot. Even if you haven't seen someone in 15 years, if they shape the architecture of who you are today, they are still attached to you. Their fingerprint is literally on your soul. The string doesn't just vanish into thin air because the physical proximity ends. The vibration of that connection echoes forever.
Which leaves us with one final paradigm shift to consider tonight. We spend our entire lives obsessed with the destination. We stare out into the dark distance, straining our eyes to see the other end of the string. We're desperately trying to figure out who is attached to it, when will they arrive, what will they look like, will they understand me?
We are obsessed with the who. We want the face at the end of the maze.
But maybe we are looking at it all wrong. Maybe the goal isn't the person waiting at the end of the tether. Maybe we should be looking at the string itself. The journey, the pulling, the unraveling, the agonizing knots we survive, and the profound strength we gain from untangling them.
Maybe the red string isn't about romance at all. Maybe it's about meaning. This has been your late night deep dive, late night conversations about late night thoughts.